For me, it was in the lower moments. It was just sheer pride. My whole self-image was tied up in whether I did well, whether I could survive this. If I couldn't, then I was no one. I was worthless. And I liked feeling good at the end of the night, and to not have that in my life was unthinkable. And there were the fringe benefits, the camaraderie in a restaurant, not just in the kitchen, but with the floor, the bartenders, all of the people who work in the business is really intense. Mm-hmm. And the feeling of being part of something, especially this group that gets out at 2:00 in the morning and parties together and has this very insular lifestyle that's so different than normal people. No matter how tough things were, no matter how hard or degraded or abused or underpaid or any of those things, we felt like an elite to some extent. Mm-hmm. And that kept me, that and the free liquor kept me going.
Hello and welcome back to Turn and Burn. Today we have a very exciting guest. I really wanted to have my first New York guest be the right kind of guest, and we are so excited to have Dave from Queens in today. Part of this show obviously is just bringing together what we are calling restaurant war stories. So, not as much about the perfection, not about, the pedigree, not about the culinary experience of little tweezers and everything else, but actually, people working back of house, front of house, who have real day-to-day experiences with this industry, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so when I went out looking for our first New York guest, I was like, it has to be perfect, right? First of all, I went looking for pizza, right? And second of all, it had to be somebody who was from New York. And once I started checking out Dave's Instagram and watching his videos and kind of getting a sense for his personality, I was so excited that he agreed to do the show with us today. And so thank you so much for being on the show, Dave. I'm very excited to tell your story. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Dave, I thought you had a pretty cool story that I wanted to hear. Could you kind of tell us real quick how you got into this industry and how you started your pizza place up in New York?
So back in around 2009, 2010, I was working at this really famous high-end celebrity-driven Italian restaurant, hotspot. I mean, you pile up all like those awesome names, and this place was called Da Silvano. And I always talk about it, even to this day, because it was just one of those places that was magical. It was amazing. It was crazy. It was just like, it was such a great place to work. And any given night, you'd see all this drama would unfold. Celebrities would come out of the car, and pop rock. It was that type of place. So right around that time, my boss came up to me, Silvano Marchetta, goes, "Hey, you, I'm going to put a pizza oven in the back, and I want you to be the pizza guy." So I was like, "Yeah, I can make pizza, sure." So during that time, I started really getting into making dough because I used to make pizza with my mom. We used to make it in the tray, like grandma style for the most part. So, but we'd put like really interesting toppings on it. And she would put the potato pizza. She'd make like zucchini pies, and she was like really creative with that. So I went back and I started really going into the art of making pizza. But then I was unsatisfied with the type of dough that we were making. So then I started really getting into it and reading a lot of books. But I was making these beautiful, like truffled burrata pizzas, white truffle pizzas, $100 pies, and and he was like really getting into some of the exotic styles of pizza making too. Sausage gorgonzola, which I actually have on my menu right here, and we had a lot of fun with it, and just kind of being with Silvano and having him just say, "Oh, do this, put a little accent of the capers into this," and it would just open up a whole new dimension. And he also gave me the freedom and flexibility to, be creative too. And I made this star pizza where you fold the crust into like wedges, into triangle shapes, and stuff it with like ricotta or mozzarella or something like that. I left the floor to work and making pizza because I was like, "Silvano, it's been a couple of years now. We're still not doing anything. I'm going to leave the restaurant, the front of the house, because I was the manager, and I'm going to go start making pizzas for you." So, and I said, "I don't want any money. I just want to prove to you that I could do it." So, he let me have that creative flexibility to do something, and to be kind of like, adventurous with the pizzas. So So it was a really great experience, and unfortunately it didn't work out. So I said, well, I'm going to find a place. I envisioned this. Everyone has like their ideas of like how they want to focus to their journey. And I was like, I envision I'm going to be making pizza out of a red wood burning oven. It was red. It had to be red for some odd reason. And it was September of 2016, and that's where I'm going to be making pizzas. And I thought it was going to be at Sylvano's. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But I found 21 Greenpoint, and then I just took off from there.
So, Dave, before we get to that story, you had some cool something you wanted to show us. Could you please show us those pictures of your family and kind of your lineage as far as the industry is concerned?
Of course. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. All right. So this is a really cool story. This takes place the late 1800s. We're talking a long time ago. So this picture is from my. Let me move the microphone really quick. And not to move this back because it's a really big picture. I don't want to hit the fan either. So this is my great-grandfather, Michele Camerino.
Wow.
And here he is right there with the big stash. This is my great-grandmother who I actually met. And she lived to be 100 years old.
Wow.
So my great-grandfather was a chef, an Italian chef. And he went to Argentina in the late 1800s to teach Italian food. So he brought his brother with him. And his brother was not as much of a master as he was, but still, he brought his brother along. And his brother really enjoyed Argentina. He enjoyed it so much that he had another family there.
Oh gosh.
So when my great-grandfather made it back to Italy, they lived in a small town called Melfi. Not Amalfi, but Melfi, Italy. And when he made it back, everyone's like, where's your brother? He's like, oh, he's still there at Argentina. So his wife was really angry. So she went to Argentina, and she didn't book a flight to get to Argentina. You had to take a boat. It took like 2 months to get there.
Oh God.
So she went there, pulled him back with the ear, left his family there, his new family there, and made it back to Italy. And during this time, my great-grandfather was offered a restaurant in Harlem, New York, East 114th Street. So he was really excited. He had money, had the passport ready and everything. So one day his brother disappears. He's like, where'd he go? He took my great-grandfather's passport and the money, and he went to New York pretending he was my great-grandfather. So he left my great-grandfather brokenhearted. And all right, so I'm going to show you this picture once again because it's significant to show you all these things out here. So back in the day, this is like the bodega in Italy, right? So you got your cured meats up here. You got your chickens down here. You got your gunpowder. He sold cigars and all this other stuff. So he was walking down in the basement, had a stogie in his mouth, tripped away. It fell, hit some dynamite because he also sold TNT there. Blew up the whole place. Yeah, it's a crazy story. So my great-grandmother was left. I think she had. Now my mother's going to kill me because my mother wrote a book about all this stuff. Ma, I love you, but I can't remember the exact story. So so she and I guess 2 of her children survived. The other 2 perished along with my great-grandfather, and they went to New York. They came to New York because my great uncle was heartbroken that his brother had passed away and died. So she came to New York, and she met this man. This is actually cool. All right, I'm glad we're going into this direction. And she met this man who fell in love with her. Her name was Elvira, and he wanted to do anything for her. So she goes, "All right, build me a house." Okay, we'll build your house. And so they moved from Harlem to Elizabeth, New Jersey. He built a house, and his nephew started this place called Spirito's Pizzeria, 1932, and that became like a family place to go to when I was a kid. And they had the best pizza, coal oven. It was just really, really amazing. And and it actually just closed. It's been around for all this time, and I think during the pandemic they had a bad spot, and fortunately they didn't make it through. But and so it finally closed. So yeah, so that's the history of these pictures of my family. But oddly enough, I worked with my mother at Da Silvano. She was a pastry chef. She made all these great pastries, and she would make this torta caprese, like the chocolate souffle that had no wheat in it, and it was like the most amazing pastry that Silvano would sell. And she'd also sell the hummingbird cake for like specialties and parties and stuff like that. And she'd always say, "Do you know what the difference between a hummingbird cake and a carrot cake? Because it's very similar." And I would say, "No." She goes, "Well, when you eat the hummingbird cake, you go, mmm." So,
I like it.
I had to put that in there because my mother is really funny.
You called yourself, like, when your first experience in this industry was as your mother's sous chef, right?
Yeah,
so that's which is such a beautiful, I think, tribute to your mom, but also a beautiful way to kind of introduce how you got into the. You didn't like go to chef school. You didn't like. There's no. You just came up through the ranks, right?
Yeah. For the most part, when I first started working at Silvano's place, I was helping him with all of his computer stuff and camera stuff, and so but I just wound up being there all the time. So then someone wasn't available to work one night, and I started working the register. So little by little, and then I started to grow, and he saw that I was really observant of all the dishes that were coming out. And I mean, if I never had that experience helping my mother when I was younger, I don't think I would have had the opportunity to work there. He probably wouldn't have seen it, but but he would. I would say, "Oh, that's so and so, ortolana, veal chopped milanese," and he would, "Oh yeah, okay." He approved that every time that I acknowledged something, that he was like, "All right, cool. This guy, he knows what he's talking about." So so it was, you never know how things unfold in your life. Like I never knew hanging out with my mom and having like the best time, because we had a little, back in the day, had a little TV in the kitchen. We'd have whatever in the background, and I'd be like prepping up, like cutting carrots or whatever, or helping her make the dinner table or sweeping the floor. Just, it was always in that amazing environment, just kind of being together when I was younger, and that was. And also being welcoming and warming, because sometimes when you work in the kitchen, it's very stressful, and it's really difficult, especially in the industry, when you have a busy, like a Friday night, everything's like expediting so fast. So but in the background, in the back of your mind, you always know that there's a fun part to it. There's a fun aspect to it that you can enjoy. And there's that balance. It gets crazy, yes, but there's also going to be a lot of fun coming around too. So you have that nice balance when you work in the kitchen.
Don't tell my wife, but I got to hear about the Rihanna story, because I'm a huge fan. I think anyone that knows Rihanna obviously is. So yeah, tell us about that story real quick, because I definitely want to hear about it.
Well, there's so many stories with Rihanna. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I got a couple for you. All right. So as I was saying before, I was working as a cashier at Silvano's place. I didn't work Monday nights, and man, he was just packing it in. I mean, it was just like so many people. He was he was doing so well, even on the Monday night. So that Monday night there was an error. Something happened with the closing, and I went to Vivian the next day, who was the Silvano's accountant and bookkeeper. And I said, "Vivian, I messed up last night saying," and so we went over the details, and she goes, "Oh, the manager next door is no longer here." And she goes, "Well, why don't you ask Silvano if you want to be the manager there?" Because he had two sections. He had the main room and he had the cantonetta, which was like the side room with the bar. So I said, "Oh, that's not a bad idea. I'm familiar with everyone. I'm friendly with everyone, and it was a little more intimate on that side." So I was like, "All right, let me ask him." So I said, "Silvano, is there anyone working as manager next door?" He goes, "No." I said, "Well, I could do it. I'm sure I could. Oh, okay. You start now." So so I get dressed, and it's around 4:00, a little after 4:00, and we get a call. Rihanna's on her way. Rihanna's like, "Oh shit." and she eats on that side. I'm like, oh my God. So of course she comes in, and she was my first customer, and I was scared. I was nervous. So, and I have the picture of it too. So like I said, Savannah, Rihanna's coming here. You do it. You don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So he goes, okay, all right. You need a little something. And Savannah had all this, like, he had scarves with his logo on it. He had sneakers. He had vests. He had all this great stuff. So he goes, all right, come here. So he put a scarf around my neck. He goes, all right, now you go. So then I went to Savannah. I mean, then I went to Rihanna, and then hi Rihanna, welcome, whatever. And it took her a couple years to warm up to me. When she finally did, she was like so cool. And there was one night. So I was telling you about all the things that Savannah used to have and to sell. He had it looked like a black pepper shaker shaped in like a wine bottle. So, but it wasn't. It was an umbrella. So she's sitting outside one night, and she's with her friends, and the bodyguard's kind of like in the distance. But so she's sitting next to my friend's family, and Savannah goes, "Hey, come here. Why don't you give this to Rihanna?" So it was the umbrella. So I go to Rihanna and I say, "Hey, Rihanna, Savannah wants to gift this to you. So, but could you guess what this is?" I said, "It's not a wine bottle. It's not a black pepper shaker. It's a." I pulled it out. It's an umbrella. And my friend's family just rolled their eyes. They're like, "This guy's such a ham." But I gave an umbrella to Rihanna, and that was probably like the highlight of my career.
That is pretty cool, Dave. Pretty cool.
That's kind of the cool thing about your story is, I mean, and it's like there's just this thing about New York. I mean, these people are just around, right? And so you get access to them, but you also made yourself available for those opportunities, which is so great. Like, you didn't just stay in one place. You kind of pushed yourself to work with other people that are well known.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Yeah, I know. So my first week working at Savannah's, it was Rihanna was the first night, Martha Stewart was the second night, Mario Batali was the third night, Sean Penn was the fourth night, and then it was like every night there was like another celebrity, and it was just amazing. But yeah, like I at that point I started, after Savannah asked me to be the pizza guy. At that point, I was really hell bent on making pizza. So you just have to put yourself out there.
You really do. And then people are so receptive to it, right? Like, they're really receptive to that kind of energy here. They're not receptive to it outside of New York as much, right? Like, they can be a little bit challenged by that kind of energy, but it's a very like, no, but I can do this. There's a confidence there, right? That I think is really, I don't know. Plus, there's so much competition. There's so many people that it's like, if you don't make yourself stand out, you get lost here.
Dave, I want to switch gears real quick and kind of ask some of the operational questions here, if you don't mind, because I'm still in the industry myself, and I know things are increasing around us tremendously, right? As far as cost is concerned, how do you manage that as an owner operator in your establishment to make sure that you're constantly adding as much profit as you can to your bottom line? Obviously, cheese and stuff like that, center of the plate items. How do you manage that as an operator?
Well, I mean, there was a patch where things just kept on going up and up and up, and there was like no end. It seemed like there was no end to it. But we really decided not to keep on increasing up our prices, and we just held firm for a while before we did so, because like, you don't want to turn off a customer. Oh, that's too expensive, I'm going to go somewhere else. Because there's a lot of pizza. Pizza can be made so many different ways and variations. It could be made with cheap flour, cheap cheese, and people will still eat it. It's still called pizza. It doesn't matter, whether it's good or bad quality of all the ingredients. So we wanted to hold off as much as we possibly could before raising our prices. And yeah, things almost doubled. And it's insane. I remember a bag of flour that I was paying like $28.50, and now it's like $48.50. So so it's a lot. I mean, and then cardboard went up. Every little thing went up, and so you sometimes you just take it on the chin. There's nothing you can really do about it. Again, I don't want to keep on raising my prices until things stabilize. So it was a tough patch, but also I don't like to waste things. I like to just kind of really to use every single thing that I have, rather than kind of, like I don't need that, or just letting something go bad. I always try to repurpose it for something else. Like, if I have one pie that I have gorgonzola cheese, and that doesn't sell. Like I'll come up with a different pie so that way I could kind of like sell it. You always try to utilize it as much as you can, sell it without throwing it out.
Yeah, I like what you said too, because it's tough. That's a tough decision when you're trying to decide: do you eat that cost or do you pass it off to the guest, right? Because at the end of the day, the guest is what makes everything go, right? An empty seat is the most expensive one in the restaurant. Was what I was always told. So it kind of it's tough because you're trying to this balancing act of when do I eat the cost versus passing it on to the guest. So that was always tough for me as well, trying to decide. And it's interesting that you said you held that price as long as you could because you didn't want to raise your prices because there is so much competition. I think that's the struggle that most owners deal with, on a daily basis. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's changed so much because it used to be a lot of takeout and delivery. Now we have a lot more dine-ins, and we could sit probably like 26 people in here, which is a nice amount. It's very intimate,
Yeah.
and I think it's because of we're getting a little bit more recognized. We're coming more of a destination point than just rather than a neighborhood pizza shop, which is great because you want to have that balance of older existing customers and new customers that keep on coming back. So yeah, and it's a struggle too because sometimes you have too many orders for the delivery and then it starts getting backed up. And I'm still one guy making pizza. I'm on the same guy, that's made pizzas here since day one. So it's it's tough to kind of balance it every once in a while. Sometimes you get someone that's out of shape waiting for 10 extra minutes or whatever. But but yeah, we're lucky and fortunate that that shift kind of like happens gradually. So we were able to kind of like manage a little bit better. And also we started putting more slices on the counter. So instead of like having like 8 pies, we have now like 15 pies, more options, more toppings to offer customers, which is great. Because if they don't want to get a personal pie, we make a personal pie, 12-inch pie, an 18-inch a larger pie, and a square pie. And the square pie looks like a Sicilian, but it's not. It's very deceiving. And you go, okay, let's eat this. And then you notice it's a little on the lighter side. Then when you bite into it, you notice it's like, wow, it's very light and airy. And it's got a nice crunch to it. Wow, that's kind of not that. All right, let's call it a Sicilian. It doesn't matter. But this is a great Sicilian. I call it a square.
Yeah, so when people call, they're like, give me the square, or do they say, give me the Sicilian?
We have to correct them. Some pizzerias, they get mad if you don't say it correctly. Like, oh, no, it's called this a certain way, like Mama's Too. My friend Frankie has a place called Mama's Too in Uptown, New York, and they'll get mad. They'll correct you. No, it's this. You have to say it this way, which is great. I love that. It's fun. All the pizzerias and all the pizza makers that I know, they're a little bit grouchy out there. They get a little attitude. And I remember I was in Sorrento, and I was at this place called Da Franco. It was a nice Italian pizzeria. Great stuff. It was almost like a New York style, really thin crust, a nice char to it. It wasn't like the soft Neapolitan. And you'd walk in the back and you see the pizza guys, making pizza. And I peer in the back because I'm a pizza guy. I'm peer in the back, and these guys, they're doing, and they're just making pizza, and they just kind of like snarl at you. And I realize they do the same thing. So we opened December 21st, 2018. And that's like the worst time to open up anything. It was like a couple days before Christmas, but like we had no choice. Everything got delayed with the renovation of the place. So it's just like, let's just open. When are we waiting for it? Had the people here, so we just opened December 21st, 2018, and we were lucky. I have to say we were lucky throughout the entire time. I mean, we made it through the pandemic and all that other stuff. So we're lucky to get this far. And back in the day, I wasn't really making as many slices. I had the squares that we make here. They were primarily the slices, but I was making more personal pies and more squares. And I was like, man, like these personal pies, they take such a long period of time because you're making each individual pie for each individual customer, and it took so long to do. And I realized if that wasn't my business plan from the beginning, I would have never survived the pandemic. Because like personal pies were key to help me sustain throughout the pandemic, and I'm just everything just kind of unfolded and fell into place. It's amazing how it did, but it really did, and I was very fortunate.
Dave, one thing I love, and Sarah and I talked about this. You guys have a certain persona up in New York. You guys have this hustle, go get it mentality, or that's what it seems like to us Southerners down here, right? So one thing I loved, and when I first, Sarah introduced me to you, how you have that grit as an owner, right? It's almost like you have a, I won't lose mentality regardless of what happens type of thing. And sometimes as GMs, I found myself in that same circle, that same space. Like, I'm not going to lose today, right? And you wear so many hats. How do you balance that on a daily basis with everything you have going on as an owner and what you do?
It's called coffee. It's called coffee. If I didn't have coffee, I don't know what I would do. Because look, restaurant owners working in the restaurant industry, you work long days. Sometimes I'm here 15, 16-hour days. So I balance it out with a good cup of coffee, several cups of coffee, I should say. And now I'm starting to make it. Now this is sad. I'm starting to make it around because I'll have 2 cups of coffee in the morning time. If I have 3, then I'm a jackhammer. I'm what they call la bestia. I'm a monster. So
Wow.
that's but yeah, it's survival. The bottom line is it's just surviving. You have to do it because if I don't want to lose this. This is fun for me. I have a lot. I take today's Monday. I'm off on Mondays. I'm closed on Mondays, but I'm here. I'm making doughs. Today's my big dough day. I make my batch of the round pies. I make my batch for the square pies, and I get everything ready. And today's my favorite day because it's all about making dough and rolling dough. And I'm going to segue to Paulie G. In 2013, I did an apprenticeship with Paulie, and I was just rolling dough for him. And there was such a zen to rolling dough. And I was working alongside Drew Brown, who is Paulie's right-hand man. And I really got into it. And Drew is this really kind, gentle guy. And I just enjoyed my moments there so much. And once I left there, because I was also working at Silvano's place at nighttime, so I couldn't balance both at that, at some point. So I had to leave Paulie G. And then after that, I just started making so much dough at home. I would make breads and pizza, and I just could not stop. I just loved the feeling of dough, and I still do. And by the way, if you like what I'm saying right now, I also go live on TikTok, and I do the whole process. I make the dough, I roll it out, I do all the stages of my dough. For example, when I make the square dough, I do the pre-fermentation the night before. I do the orderlies, which I'm doing right now, and then I mix it all together and I make my final batch of dough. And later on this evening, I'll roll it out and I'll portion it out and I'll put it away until Wednesday and Thursday. So I do all that live. So
cool. What's your TikTok handle so people know?
Thank you. I don't know how I came up with this handle. I apologize for everything. Da Incredible Pizza Guy.
So DA Incredible Pizza Guy.
Yeah. Do I have a sticker?
Da. You gotta say it that way, Sarah. Da. Pizza
You know
guy.
what? It's
Da Incredible.
Vaccacelli here.
Oh yeah. There it is.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
So,
and we're gonna be tagging you all over the place when we promote this too. So we will be sure to tag both your Instagram and your TikTok. You're not doing those kind of live videos on Instagram, or you're not doing them yet? Like, are you thinking about that?
I don't do Instagram. I mean, we do it for business, but I just feel like it's I have a big playing field in TikTok.
Yeah, great.
And so many people find me, and I'm up to 12,000 followers now.
Fantastic.
Which is just like it's crazy. It's crazy. So it's the consistency of me just doing the same thing over and over again, and it's my charming personality that keeps on bringing more people back. Of course,
that's what made me want to have you on the show. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, speaking of your Instagram, is you guys have these videos that are like what happens on Queens Boulevard. I mean, it's again a very New York story, right? Like, there's just crazy stuff going on out in front. So talk about that a little bit, will you?
Well. Again, I'm always here. So when something happens outside my door, my window, I have to react to it. And one night there was this kid, and I feel really bad. There was this kid who must have been so inebriated that he was running towards, I have a planter box, running towards the planter, facing the planter box, and he just toppled right over. And he did this like boom, boom, and landed like on his neck and head. And I didn't see that part. I just saw him getting up and leaving in my planter box over there. So of course I get up and I'm like, hey, like I'm yelling at him. But then I realized, I looked at the video and I was like, this is unbelievable. I couldn't stop watching it. I was like, I think I'm going to post this. And Kenny, who works with me, who's really become my right-hand man, he's like, yeah, post it. So we posted it up. And at first I did it on TikTok. He goes, no, you got to go to What is New York? Put it on What is New York?
Yeah.
So they posted it, and then we posted it on our Philomena's Queen's Instagram, and now I think we're close to 3 million views on that one video, which is nuts. And we have so many people from that to kind of like bring more attention to the place. And and honestly, that's why I do TikTok, because I'm like, hey, I'm over here. I know Queens is not the destination location for pizza. No one thinks, everyone, Brooklyn, Manhattan, not really, Queens. So that's why I'm going, over here. I got good pizza. It's good. So that's kind of redirecting the traffic to come over here. It's wonderful. But it's an open story. And I'll tell you, and I didn't post it up yet, but I have another video that happened on Friday night. So we're all hanging out here towards the end of the night. We're all closed up, and I had some of my friends hanging out. And this woman kicks the door. I didn't clean off the footprint yet. She kicks the door open. So I run out, and I had my phone. I was live on TikTok, and I grabbed my phone, and I ran outside. I lost some of the Wi-Fi connection. And so I made it close up to her, and I said, why'd you kick my door? And she goes, you do not want to mess with me right now. And she was all angry and upset about it. And she goes, what are you going to do about it? And I kept on thinking, what am I going to do about it? I'll make a video.
That is what I envision when I think New York. That is exactly New York. Yeah.
So her boyfriend pulled her away. He goes, look, he's recording you. and her boyfriend was going to places where she didn't want him to go to, because in the video, I take so I have 2 camera angles outside. She's coming down the street. And she goes, "You're gonna go there? And then she's getting mad. She kicked the bus stop. She kicked the bus stop. Like, why'd you kick the bus stop? And then she came out and she goes, you know what I'm going to do? And she comes over and she kicks my door. She doesn't kick him. She kicks my door. For some reason, I have no idea. Wow. So I'm working on that video because there is certain bits that you miss. When I go outside, so she says, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And that's key, because that's kind of the ignition for the whole video now at this point to make for her. So she'll get her time.
But see, this is, you are maybe single-handedly showing people why Queens is the place for pizza, right?
I guess so.
Right? Like, there's a lot more going on in Queens. It's actually my favorite borough. I used to live in Queens, and it is my favorite borough. I absolutely love it. There is something so, like, just, I don't know, there's something very New York pure still in Queens that I think is really, I don't know, when I think of New York, like the reason that I moved here, I'm not originally from here, but why I moved here, it was for what I found in Queens, less so in some of the other boroughs, right? There's just, I don't know, there's still so much family, and, like, it's just a beautiful community. It's very supportive, and so, like, I personally support your being in Queens, right? As opposed to, again, we talked about this before, like one more artisanal pizza shop in Brooklyn, run by people from, the West Coast or something, right? Like, this is like, you are, you're in your home base, right? Doing what you love. And I think it's just such a beautiful New York story.
Is it true what they say? If you make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
We'll see. My story is still going. My story is still ongoing. I live here and I work here. I live in I have the same zip code for my work and for my home, and I get to walk to work. I have this pleasure, and I never even thought of opening up in another location. I always wanted to be close to home because I wanted to be close to my dough. I wanted to be close to my family. My kids work here. My wife works here. So there's, it's great. My daughter Philomena, she makes pizza with me. And she's awesome at it. My other daughter, she works to register, and it's really like, and I'm glad that people could see that, there's, it's a family run business, and that there's a little more pride taken into it. And, I'm happy to be here because it's such a multicultural place. You can go anywhere and have any different type of ethnic food. It all exists here in one borough in Queens. And that's one thing I really love about it. And you get to find a place that's open till 2:00 in the morning, 3:00 in the morning, and you get to go out and eat. And I love it. There's a place I go to now in Flushing. There's a Korean restaurant that's open till 4:00 in the morning, and
Wow.
I'm the happiest guy in the world.
Well, for people who work in service industry, they need stuff that's open that late,
Yep.
right? I mean,
It's
when you
true.
guys get
Yeah.
out of work and there's nothing open, then you're
That's
just eating
true.
pizza every day. Right?
So I go live everywhere on TikTok. So I went to this Korean restaurant. Afterwards, I was like, well, let me show you around this whole location. And then I found a bakery that's open 24 hours right after that. And they had these amazing pastries. And I was just like, this is so great. You know,
Yeah.
it's just it's endless. You know, your my journey into Manhattan, New York City, Queens, whatever. It's endless. You could find so many great things here.
It's absolutely true. Yeah. And I know that Queens it's like the amount of diversity kind of packed into these little neighborhoods that are each also very distinctive, right? In their own way. And there's like a respect there and a commonality of wanting to be in Queens. I don't know. There's just something about that borough. I absolutely love it.
Well, I'm sold. I'm coming to Queens. When I visit
Yeah,
New
come
York,
to Queens.
I'm coming to Queens.
Come to Queens.
You
You
guys
got to come
sold
up
me,
and
so I'm
record
good.
live one day. Maybe we'll do a TikTok turn and burn crossover with Dave, right?
That would be
There you
fun. My friend Kenny, who works here now, I actually got his attention on his live because he was right down the street, and I was able to kind of, hey, come over here. You know, like I got a pizzeria. So he
Mhm.
came here. He likes the pizza so much. He quit his job. Now he works here. So he helps me out on my social media. And we came up with this idea to have a guest book. And these are all the guests that we have that come in from all over the world. It's amazing.
Oh, cool.
Norway, there's a couple that came in from last night from California just to try the pizza. And it's an amazing thing. And I'm just so lucky and blessed to have like this whole opportunity that just keeps on opening up. So if I can make it here, you asked me a question. I'm sorry. Now I'm excited. Now that you're like, oh, let's go. No, I want to keep on going. So you asked me, you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I met someone else on TikTok, and he is this Japanese fellow. He's a comedian. And he comes here and he wants to open up his pizzeria in Japan. And so I was in Japan last September, and I was thinking to myself, I want to open up a pizzeria here. So now that I have his help and have some of his audience that watch me make pizza and all this other stuff, I want to venture out, not just in the country, but all over the world to make pizza. So let's see. If I can make it here, I can make it anywhere. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's see if you can make it in Tokyo. I think that
There
sounds
you go.
like a really, really fun adventure, right?
Oh my God.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Dave. I'm so
Yes.
blessed to have you on the show. We are
Yes.
so grateful to have you.
I know how it is as an owner operator, how much you guys, what you put into it, and obviously, with your passion. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this with us. I definitely appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Fred. Thank you, Sarah. Listen, if you guys make it here, I'd love to make you a pie. Maybe you can help me make a pie together. That's always a lot of fun to do.
I already have it on my list of to-dos to come by. Philomena's Artisan Pizza, right? And then what's the address in Sunnyside? Thank you very much. What's the address?
Right, 4116 Queens Boulevard, right off the 7 train, 48th Street subway stop.
Excellent. Perfect. See, now everybody knows how to geolocate you. All right, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for
you,
having
Dave.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. And now for the shameless plug. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider buying us a $5 round or becoming a monthly supporter by visiting turnburn.co, selecting support, and clicking the Buy Us a Beer button.
Please also stay tuned for podcast updates by subscribing to our newsletter at turnburn.co and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Turn Burn Show. Thanks again for joining us, and stay out of the weeds.